Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, we've got Michael McCubbin and Henry Hill. Welcome aboard, boys. McCubs, how are you on this Thursday morning?
Yeah, not too bad. United lost last night, but an entertaining game, and just buzzing for that final showdown next week now. It's going to be incredibly tense and unbearable, but yeah, bring it on.
Unbearable is the perfect word for watching United at the moment. It's just, chaos on either end. You never know what you're going to get. It's a lot of fun. Henry, you're looking very smart in your shirt. Are you feeling smart in the mind today?
I wish I could match my appearance with what I'm probably about to say on the show, but maybe we'll see. I'm still having to rep this mustache, which I only really got late on in the game due to various things. So yeah, people probably are watching on looking a bit alarmed at why I've suddenly changed my appearance at this point. Dougie, congratulations for doing it the whole way through, I must say.
Thank you.
Like McCubbin, I don't remember a Champions League which has set up so many big ties for the final round in a long time, if that makes sense. There are so many groups which there's some huge clashes across the board now. Atalanta, Ajax, the Lokomotiv Moscow group as well. That set up the Atletico Madrid Salzburg game that we talked about last week, and also my boys club Bruges. They've got a chance to beat Lazio to go through. So yeah, it's pretty exciting after everything that happened last night to see what's gonna go down in the next round of the Champions League.
Absolutely. It's been a mad competition so far and thoroughly enjoyable. And one of those teams at threat of going out is Real Madrid, who we are covering today. Because at Vasi Detelinara 8 says, if Real Madrid go into the Europa League and sack Zidane, should they replace him with Pochettino? But before we get involved in that, just a quick reminder to subscribe to Eurofootball Daily and hit that notification bell to never miss a Continental Club. We drop videos like this every single Friday. But there was only one topic we were going to cover this week, and that was Real Madrid after their 2-0 humbling away at Shakhtar Donetsk left their Champions League hopes hanging by a thread. So today we want to talk about their season so far, who is to blame for their current issues, and some potential solutions. Henry, we're going to kick off with their season so far because people went into this season expecting, quite big things and maybe a bit of an improvement from Real Madrid.
I mean, it's been a funny old season across the board in La Liga, not least for Real Madrid, as you said there. I mean, they did go in as favourites. They'd won 10 of their 11 games after the lockdown in the previous season and ended up 5 points clear of Barcelona at the top in a really impressive run in there to clinch the La Liga title. And their 87 points was the highest since 2016-17 and 19 more than the previous campaign. They were looking on course. Zidane had got them playing in their kind of no-nonsense, bullish way again, getting the best out of these old players once more. But yeah, it's just gone a bit wrong so far this season, not at least in the Champions League. They haven't made it to the round of 16 for 2 consecutive seasons. And obviously they were beaten by Man City 4-2 last term as well. This summer in the transfer window, they had a bit of a weird... Obviously, they'd spent so much money in the previous summer on players that necessarily hadn't worked out. So there was this big idea that they had to rake in money and try and balance the books there. So they had a bit of a weird summer. They offloaded 97 million euros worth of talent in Hakimi, Reguilón, Oscar Rodriguez, James Rodriguez. And of course, they loaned out Gareth Bale, Brahim Diaz, Renier, Kubo, and Borja Mayoral. So it's a big exodus of players there. And the only real player that arrived in that time was obviously Martin Odegaard, the 21-year-old, who hasn't been given a ton of opportunities. He obviously played against Inter Milan in the Champions League game they did win. But aside from that, he hasn't exactly smashed into their team. And in the league, they started off really strong. They were top after 3 wins in their 4 opening games, but since then they've only won 2 of their last 6 league games. That's 1 draw and 3 defeats. As a result of that, like I said, it's been a bit of a funny season. Real Sociedad have raced ahead and they're 7 points behind Sociedad at this stage, albeit they do have a game in hand. However, if Atletico Madrid win their game in hand on Real Madrid, they could be 9 points ahead of their cross-city rivals, which is going to be a real concern for Real Madrid as we go into the January window now. And, the thing about Madrid is they have XG maybe makes them look a bit better than maybe they should be. They rank 2nd for shots, 13 for shots against, which is still pretty decent. And, XG rates them as the 4th best side in Spain, having been comfortably the best in 1920. So obviously it is a big drop-off. But, they are creating chances there. I mean, their main problem really is they can't score that much. They're really lacking for big goal scorers at the moment. I think Benzema's top scorer in the league on just 4 goals. And then beyond that, it's just a smattering of players who've managed to actually find the back of the net so far this season. And, their Champions League form's arguably been even worse. They've lost both games against Shakhtar Donetsk, which I think is... Shakhtar are a good side, don't get me wrong. They've got Champions League pedigree, but that's surely that's just not acceptable for a team like Real Madrid. And they've conceded 5 goals in that process. I watched a bit of the game in Ukraine this week, and obviously they dominated and they looked strong, but then it's just defensive errors that really undid them there. Shakhtar raced away with the win. And they also drew 2-2 away at Gladbach. Like I said, they did beat Inter Milan, scoring 5 goals and conceding 2 across 2 games. But yeah, they're now just 1 point behind Gladbach, who really missed a trick against Inter Milan the other night to go through. And their level of points with Shakhtar, just 2 ahead of Inter. This is one of the groups that is really set up for a final day showdown. So they have to beat Gladbach away from home to guarantee progression. This stat amazes me, they risk exiting the group stage for the first time in their history. That's bonkers. Normally a team has a slip up every now and then. But the idea that they could drop out for the first time in their history, and that's a big deal for a club like Real Madrid who pride themselves on their kind of appearances in the Champions League particularly. I mean, either way, they've already lost as many group games in the Champions League as they did under Zidane across 3 of their previous campaigns, when they lost 2 out of 18 under the Frenchman. I mean, it's just going a bit... It's just not worked out for them at all. And this isn't... I don't think it was obviously a difficult group. Gladbach are a decent side. Shakhtar always there and thereabouts in the Champions League. But they've got to be looking at that and think that they could get through, especially after the way they finished last season so emphatically. And like I said, it looked like the team that could go on and win, yes, another La Liga title. But yeah, I mean, it's clearly something's not quite right at the Bernabeu right now.
Yeah, I think you can say that again. I think in many ways, I'm more disappointed with Real Madrid this season than Barcelona, in that I didn't expect Barcelona to be fantastic at the start of this season with the new manager, so many new young players coming in. But Real Madrid, I feel like, their drop-off is almost more drastic from June to now than it was for Barcelona, who were pretty poor after the restart, got hammered by Bayern Munich, and now look pretty inconsistent, albeit much stronger in the Champions League. And it's Real Madrid that are really sort of embarrassing themselves on the biggest stage of all. McCubs, I mean, let's cover a bit of ground here. I mean, who is to blame? Is it Zidane? Is it the manager? Is it the president? Is it the players? Who would you put most blame on?
I think it's probably a mixture of Zidane and Perez, isn't it? I think there was probably a bit of complacency in the summer, like you say, Dukes. We all expected Barcelona to not be so good this season. I don't know if we really expected Real Madrid to be amazing this season, but I think that late season form that Real Madrid kind of came into, which was impressive to be fair, was also, I think, almost accentuated more by the meltdown at Barcelona. Like, if Barcelona had a strong end to the season, they would have had just as good a chance of taking the title, wouldn't they? So I think there was maybe a little bit of complacency in the summer of no matter what Real Madrid do, they're still going to be light years ahead of Barcelona this term, and that's just not been the case. And I think, like Henry was saying, they were excellent defensively last term. Zidane got them kind of running harder than they had done in years, and it worked. I think it was arguably Zidane's most impressive managerial season in terms of winning the league in the fashion that he did, and shoring up that defense as well. I think his kind of managerial credentials really kind of took a step up, whereas before there was kind of a sense that he did just have a star team in the kind of with players all at the peak of their powers, whereas he was kind of able to get the best out of players like Fede Valverde and get the best out of a player like Benzema, like an aging Benzema last term.
Courtois,
among others, Courtois came into the kind of form of his career, didn't he? That defence in general looked as good as it had done in years. And I think that's just not been possible this term, has it? Because fitness has been such an issue for them. I think obviously, like a lot of European sides, they're not the only team to have gone through an injury crisis, but it has been pretty major. Sergio Ramos has missed 8 games already. Hazard's missed 15. Continuing that poor fitness record from last term. Fede Valverde, who was so important to them last season and has been when he's played this term, has missed 6 games already. Benzema's been out of 4. The right back slot has been non-existent, hasn't it? I think Odriozola and Carvajal have missed 20 games between them. Jovic has missed 9. So like it's pretty unprecedented, isn't it? Like this season in general. But yeah, it's just you can't really expect to kind of build kind of consistent form and have a consistent playing style when you're playing a different team every single week. At right back, they've had to kind of have Ferland Mendy originally and then have Lucas Vazquez play as a makeshift right back more recently. I actually think Vazquez hasn't done the worst job there, to be honest. But that defence has just really fallen apart, hasn't it? Especially in the absence of Sergio Ramos. I was reading that across their kind of Champions League, since Ramos arrived in 2006 or whenever it was, Real Madrid have only won 55% of their Champions League games in which he hasn't featured. And I think in maybe I guess in the last year or so, that's probably been even worse, hasn't it? I don't know when they last won a game without him in the side, at least in the Champions League. So in that sense, I think Florentino Perez probably does have to take a bit of the blame for maybe being a bit complacent in the summer. Obviously, there was a sense that money was tight after the COVID crisis or during the COVID crisis, which continues. And the fact they spent so much last summer, that £319 spend in the summer of 2019 was their biggest ever. It was something like 202 net. But yeah, either way, it's bigger even than the 2009 spend when they brought in Kaká and Ronaldo and Benzema and Xabi Alonso. It was understandable that they didn't spend this summer. I think probably what was more concerning is the fact that the players that they let go, like Henry was saying, players like Reguilon, he could have been really useful as a backup or at left back this term, couldn't he? A player like Ceballos, who I think could have deputised well in midfield. I think that probably comes down to Zidane as well, because he's never been a big fan of Ceballos, has he? I think he's always been pretty reluctant to make him part of his first team plans. And when you look back on that spend last summer, Madrid was successful last season in spite of that significant spend, not because of it. Ferland Mendy was the only real success story, and he has been a real success story. He already looks like the long-term option at left back, doesn't he? I think he's replaced Marcelo excellently, and that was needed because Marcelo's drop off has been steep, hasn't it, in the last 18 months. But look at Hazard, undoubtedly a failure so far. Jovic, undoubtedly a failure so far. I have no idea what Zidane really is thinking for him in the long term. Eder Militao doesn't quite look ready yet, does he? I have faith that he will be ready at some point, but 22 years old, centre back. I don't think you can really necessarily expect him to be slotting in there on a long term or on a consistent basis at the moment. I think that's a bit of a problem for them, because obviously that necessitated them not spending this summer. And their recent transfer policy as well has also left them quite an unbalanced squad in terms of kind of age. They've got a lot of aging stars who 5 years ago were the best in the world and were kind of firing them to Champions League glory and whatnot, but are now very much on the decline or looking like they could go on the decline, or fitness will as we've seen with Ramos and Benzema this term is not they're not at peak physical fitness, and so you just can't expect them, even if they are still performing at a very high level when they do play. You just can't rely on them in the same way that you used to be able to. I don't know, the players they've got rid of over the years as well would have been incredibly useful to have at the club, and I think that's probably, I don't know, I think people are quite quick to blame Perez in that, but Zidane has worked with this team for a long time, and there are players who he clearly didn't want to play or didn't see as starters. Someone like Kovacic, who has proved himself over the last 18 months at Chelsea as one of the best central midfielders in Europe. Marcos Llorente, who's obviously had an amazing kind of transformation at Atletico Madrid. Theo Hernandez, who's doing brilliantly at AC Milan. Reguilon, who, like we said, would have been a great backup to Ferland Mendy this season, or at least, could have gone on loan, couldn't he? Not really sure what the thinking was behind that, apart from making that quick 30 million. It's I don't know. It's hard to push the blame on anyone, but or on any one person, but I think it has to be split between Perez and Zidane. I don't think you could put too much blame on the players.
Yeah, I mean, he'll certainly have a lot of scrutiny on him. In terms of the players, I feel like Courtois has taken a drop off this year. I think Varane has as well. Obviously, it's really difficult when you're playing in a makeshift backline, but Varane at this stage has probably had the worst 18 months of his career, which is just not the time that you want it. Now he's approaching his peak, or probably in his peak. You know, as they try and rest Ramos more, as they try and integrate Eder Militao, you want Varane to be really stepping up. And on Tuesday, again against Shakhtar Donetsk, it was his error that led to the opening goal. And Courtois, silly mistake against Alaves at the weekend, gifting the ball away. I mean, mistakes happen in football. I'm not hammering them for that. But these are the players that are in their prime right now that aren't past it, like the Ramos, the Modric's, the Benzema's, or winding down at least. And they're not the youngsters that are coming through that look so promising. These are the players that really need to be nailing their performances consistently and taking Real Madrid to the next level. I'm just not sure they're doing that. But in terms of Zidane, he's under a lot of scrutiny. Personally, I wouldn't change manager. I don't really see what any other coach is going to do with the amount of injuries in their squad at the moment. And also, Pochettino aside, I just don't think the options are very good in terms of managers out of work at the moment. I mean, it's Pochettino, Allegri. I mean, Rafa Benitez is a name that sprung to mind, Arsene Wenger. But I'm not blown away by Allegri, Rafa Benitez, or Wenger, to be honest. Pochettino, obviously fantastic manager, but he's been overlooked for the Bayern jobs, the Juve jobs in the last 12 months. Been out of work since November 2019. Obviously a fantastic manager, did awesome work at Spurs. You know, they'd only finished in the top four, I think, 3 times in 25 years prior to his arrival. They did so in 3 of his 4 years at the club, reached 2 FA Cup semi-finals, of course a Champions League final. He signed really well. He's a really good use, or at least in England, showed that he could really utilise a market that obviously he wasn't familiar with growing up in terms of, you know, he probably didn't watch English footballs in the same way that he did La Liga or whatever. But Dele Alli, Son Heung-min, Toby Alderweireld, fantastic signings. He also developed the likes of Harry Winks and Harry Kane into some of the better players in England, so he can work with the academy as well. He's the outstanding candidate, but I think really Real Madrid are a side in transition, and I wouldn't rush to replace Zidane, to be totally honest. I think unless there is issues within that squad, which has been speculated, that the players want him out, which we have seen before with previous Real Madrid managers getting sort of chucked under the bus slightly, at least in quite a few years gone by with Mourinho, although he did a lot of chucking himself. It was just a pretty unhappy marriage by the end. But Zidane, unless there's issues within the squad and whether they want him, I would keep hold of him for now. But if he does go, Pochettino is by far the best option for me. But there's also, this is a transition that I would say is only half complete. Obviously, they didn't sign in the summer. And there's very few positions that you'd say they're dead certain for the future. I think goalkeeper, they've got 2 good goalkeepers, although Courtois' form has dropped off. I think right back, they're pretty set with Carvajal and Odriozola. They're also well stocked with wingers, although they need better performances out of Hazard, Asensio, Vinicius and Rodrigo, to be honest. Lucas Vazquez can probably be moved on at some stage. What they definitely do need is that long-term replacement for Sergio Ramos, who's 34. Militao is 22. As McCubs said, it's been really difficult for him integrating into a new side with loads of changes in the backline, and he hasn't looked that assured so far, although there's still plenty to come from him. They probably need at least one more midfielder. Modric is 35, Kroos is 30, and we've already seen when Fede Valverde doesn't play, there's a real lack of defensive dynamism, I would say, in that midfield, and potentially they need another 10 if Isco leaves. So there are another left back with Marcelo now 32. So there is a load of players that they could go for. But I wanted to kick off with centre back options. For me, there is one centre back that makes more sense over everyone else, and it's Dayot Upamecano. We link him with every club, and for good reason. I think he is the outstanding young centre back in Europe right now. It's clear he's got the ball skills, he's very good in the air, he can bring the ball out of defence really well, he reads the game exceptionally well. He's had some poor Champions League performances this term, which has probably slightly lessened the excitement around him slightly, not least at Old Trafford, but he's still a phenomenal player. He had an off day or an off night that night, and I think he's got a big future ahead of him. And pairing him with Varane, who's likely to be his long-term France partner as well, really good option. Back up for that, Milan Skriniar, 25, only given 6 League and Champions League starts. He'd be a much cheaper alternative. I mean, I think Inter Milan were only looking for around 30 to 40 million euros in the end this summer. So he would be a good alternative. Very good passer of the ball, brings the ball out really well as well. seems ready-made for a Real Madrid job. And then I'll talk about defensive midfielders, and then I'll get Henry and McCubs' opinions on the other positions. I think defensive midfielder, they've been linked with Eduardo Camavinga for ages now. He's developing so well at Rennes, 18 years old now. Just looked like a defensive behemoth last year with some nice touches, but this year we've seen far more dynamism. Some of his link-up plays been really nicely. He's shone for the France national team as well. He's now completing over 90% of his passes, nearly 2 dribbles. An alternative, much cheaper, Ismail Benacer, I think would be a really worth looking at. 23 years old, simply glides around the AC Milan pitch. He's absolutely been phenomenal this term alongside Kessié in midfield. He looks completely reborn, Kessié as well. But Benacer, 12 League and Champions League games, 4 tackles and interceptions, nearly 2 dribbles. Probably doesn't have the sort of finesse to his game that Camavinga does. And probably not quite as attractive on the eye, but a really, really effective player that would work really well alongside Casemiro and someone else in that midfield. Probably Kroos. I think Kroos has still got a couple more years in him, to be fair. He's got the sort of game that's not going to deteriorate that massively with age, because he's never been particularly athletic or, particularly quick at least. But Henry, let's talk about the sort of creative midfielder, because once again, as it always does, the Paul Pogba rumours will start swirling. Do you think he'd be a good option for Real Madrid?
I do. It says written here, dream option. I'm not sure if you can call Paul Pogba a dream option anymore. Nonetheless, he quite clearly wants that move. I've been writing about Paul Pogba recently, and actually the way that they do play under Zidane would really suit his game. He could play on the left side of a midfield 3, and he does have that box-to-box dynamism to be able to get up. And, let's face it, when Pogba's good, he is very, very good. And I think he wants to go there. He wants to challenge for titles on a more regular basis. And, the thing you can say about Real Madrid is they could quite easily be challenging again for the title next year. It wouldn't take, I don't think, that much of a drastic change to get them on the right path once again. So I think that's always going to be an attractive option, obviously playing at the Bernabeu, etc. But I mean, that's not to say the 27-year-old is, the perfect player. He's missed 39 games of injury since the start of last season. But, in 17-18, he got 16 goal involvements, and then 23 in 18-19. Takes a huge number of shots. He's got his long passing ability is excellent, and his dribbling stats as well. And actually, when he does defend and when he does use his head a little bit more, he can do it. It's just, you just need to get his head in the right place, and I think maybe like a fresh start for him and the opportunities to go to Madrid might actually be what he needs too, from what I understand. Because, it's all well and good us sitting here and listing off these players. We have to bear in mind how much all these players would cost. And realistically, like the package we're talking about here is like a 200 million euro package once again, if you really consider it. I mean, Camavinga alone would probably be looking 50, 60 million right now, maybe even more than that. Pogba, though, this is probably going to be Manchester United's last summer coming up to make any substantial return on that investment. Either that, or he's going to run down the clock until he's 29 years old and then just leave on a free where he can choose wherever he wants to go. So, from what I understand from reading, even in The Athletic, they're saying 40 to 50 million. That could be enough to prize Pogba away from United this summer.
Really?
In which case, it could be the kind of move that works for him. Another alternative, however, could be Fabian Ruiz from Napoli. 8 Serie A games, 1 goal, 1 assist this term. I believe he scored at the weekend in the 4-0 win. Lovely goal from distance as well. And once again, defensively really astute is there as well. 3.6 tackles and interceptions, 1.7 shots, 1.1 key passes, and a dribble. Fantastic stuff. But yeah, Fabian Ruiz, we've been expecting him to leave Napoli for a while. But Napoli are looking great again. There's no guarantee that he'll want to leave, especially if they can push on in Serie A and make Champions League football once again. But yeah, excellent for Spain. I think playing for the Spanish national side soon. Definitely an option worth considering. McCubbin, what do you think about the striking options?
Yeah, first of all, the creative midfield option, it's a difficult one because I think, I guess that would be with the assumption that Isco would leave. And I guess, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily want to kind of stop Odegaard's development.
Yeah.
But I think, especially Fabian Ruiz, I think he's a good all-round midfield option, isn't he? And I think, alternatives to him if he was to prove too expensive. I think someone like Mikel Merino, who I know you're a big fan of, Henry, at Sociedad. Although I think Sociedad would hold out for a lot on him as well. But someone like Locatelli at Sassuolo, who's been running that midfield, hasn't he, for the last year, would be a good option as well. Players who kind of deep line playmakers, I guess, who can do the defensive work and get the ball forwards as well and create chances. I think would be quite ideal, because I think without like we said, without Fede Valverde, that midfield doesn't function quite as well, and especially without Casemiro, that midfield just completely falls apart, doesn't it? So I think if you weren't able to get Camavinga, if he was to prove too much next summer, especially if they were to go for one of the big boys up top, then maybe a bit more of a hybrid kind of midfielder would work quite well and would maybe kind of bridge that gap that they so desperately need to kind of bridge between kind of Modric and whoever's next, or essentially kind of become that Modric replacement, I guess. But up top, I think we all know who the man is. It's Kylian Mbappe, who I think most Real Madrid fans are just kind of waiting eagerly for at this moment in time. I think this is probably the kind of prospect which is kind of keeping Madrid fans positive, I guess. Obviously, I mean, we don't need to go into his numbers too deeply. He's the best under 23 player in the world, isn't he? 76 goal contributions in 57 Liga and games since the start of 18-19. And obviously, I think he can. What's good about him as well is that he can play on the left or right, as we see kind of Benzema play out his final 2 or 3 years with the club. As there's no kind of sign that he's necessarily slowing down at this moment in time. But equally, if Benzema is out or has to be rested, then he can just slot into that centre forward role pretty seamlessly. However, he is going to cost an awful lot of money. Alternatives who would be cheaper would be, Erling Haaland for one, if they're willing to wait until 2022 when his release clause comes into effect, at least if reports are to be believed. Lautaro Martinez would probably be about 100 mil less, wouldn't he? Even at around 100 mil. I think he could be a positive one. I think also, although the problem with Lautaro Martinez is that we haven't really seen him operate as a lone striker. So in that sense, I mean, in a kind of, in a theoretical kind of world, or hypothetical world, that's the word I'm looking for. Experimenting with him and Jovic as a front two up front could be quite interesting. Not sure if a manager would get the kind of backing to do that necessarily. It's quite a drastic change from the system they have at the moment, but I could see that potentially working. You've also got Marcus Thuram, Donyell Malen, the kind of younger players coming through who would be a lot better value. And but I think Mbappe is obviously who they're going to gun for, and if he's available and if he's not going to cost, I don't know, upwards of 200 million. I don't really know what the market's going to be saying next summer. But you'd expect him to be,
his contract is in a finite situation, so I don't know if he has extended. So I don't think he's going to cost 200 million. I mean, it really depends on whether or not he does pen a new deal at PSG. Otherwise, I think. Correct me in the comments. It might be even 2021 or 2022 that he would be available for free.
I think it's 2021.
I just remembered that. Sorry, that's I've kind of made my point null there. It is all dependent on his contracts, and at the moment he'll basically be free to go for a fee of some sort next summer. But I still don't think PSG aren't going to accept anything less than 150 mil. I think just because they'll still have 12 months to try and persuade him to sign a new deal even then. But I mean, if he's available, I think Real Madrid do go for him, don't they?
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to think, are there any other kind of alternatives I had down there in terms of if they do really need a 10? I'm not sure if they do, but I think Eriksen would maybe be a good kind of short-term fix in that area if they needed someone to kind of fill in.
Dybala maybe.
Sorry?
Dybala maybe as well.
Dybala as well. Tielemans I had down as well as a kind of all-round kind of midfielder as well. I think he'd slot in really well. Again, probably a bit too expensive from Leicester. And if they're really struggling for striking options, Arkadiusz Milik is available on a free next summer as well. But yeah, so I feel like we've covered quite a lot of ground there.
Yeah, we absolutely have. I just want a one-word answer, literally one word. Henry, would you sack Zidane now?
No.
Would you sack him if they don't qualify from the groups?
No.
McCubs, would you sack Zidane?
Oh, I don't know. It's tough. I think you made a good case for him staying, but I think if they don't qualify for the groups, I feel like his position is kind of untenable. And even though Pochettino isn't necessarily the man to fix things right now, he is still. I think he would still be an amazing manager at Real Madrid.
Look at you cheating using so many words.
Yeah, I was going to say, why do I get one word? He gets a whole paragraph. It's an outrage.
I forgot about the one word thing, but yes, in short, yes.
Okay, yes, I am staying loyal with my bald ally, Zizou. You're staying in the job, Zizou. Henry's keeping you as well. McCubs, not so. He's being a bit more cutthroat. Guys, what did you guys think of our How to Fix Real Madrid? And who would you guys sign this summer? Who would your priority be? Mbappe, Camavinga, Upamecano, someone else, Pogba maybe? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's get on with our big match preview. There are some massive games across Europe this weekend. Sevilla take on Real Madrid on Saturday and Sampdoria take on AC Milan on Sunday as AC Milan look to continue their reign at the top of Serie A. But the biggest game of this weekend, without doubt, takes place in Germany on Saturday, at 5:30 with Bayern Munich hosting RB Leipzig, first versus second. Absolutely massive game. Henry, Bayern Munich, I mean, they had a great result in midweek considering that they rested so many players and they just continue to excel despite their injuries.
That's right. I'm buzzing for this one, probably more so than many previous ones. Hansi Flick, like you said, the benefit of them already qualifying from their group is that he could rest a number of key players for this game. So, Gnabry and Müller, they were both on the bench. Neuer, Goretzka, Lewandowski, they didn't even go to Spain. They still managed to walk away with a 1-1 victory. Their side included Their side included Chelsea academy players Bright, Araymbi, and Jamal Musiala, who was absolutely fantastic. We'll get on to him later. But the result was pretty harsh on Atletico Madrid. It was 1-1. XG had its 1.6 to 1.1 for them, and Atletico had 13 shots to Bayern 6. Classic Thomas Müller coming on and sneaking that penalty at the end. João Felix, once again, incredible performance from him. I'm sure we'll be talking about him for many episodes to come. But league form, if we look at Bayern in the Bundesliga, they've recovered well from that shock 4-1 defeat. It feels so weird to think they lost 4-1 to Hoffenheim in match week 2. Hoffenheim haven't really kicked on since. But then they've won 6 of their last 7 league fixtures. That includes 1 draw. And they've scored 22 goals in the process. But it's pretty tight. They now sit 2 points clear of their opponents this weekend. So, there's a lot to play for going into this game. Their attack has been incredible. There's no getting away from it. 31 goals is 10 more than the next best, Borussia Dortmund in Germany, and 1 more than the next best in Europe, who's PSG, who have played 3 games more than them, and let's face it, probably should be scoring more against some of the French opposition. Lewandowski, the guy can't stop right now, 32 years old. I think he's on like 14 goals in 10 games in the Bundesliga or something silly like that. But attack aside, maybe it's their defence that could be the thing that lets them get down in this game. And I think this is what makes this quite a tasty affair. They've only kept 2 clean sheets in 9 league games and 4 in 17 in all competitions, which isn't really what you'd expect. Only Gladbach have conceded more than their 13 league goals to date in the top 8 of the Bundesliga. Very surprising stat there. And I watched the highlights last week of them against Stuttgart, and Stuttgart really gossiped them. Stuttgart had a number of opportunities to score. Manuel Neuer got really lucky with a free kick essentially in his box. He's basically slipped. He'd one of the more risky displays from Neuer, who's I think reasserted himself as arguably one of the best goalies in the world, in the top 2 anyway. But it was a bit more of a shaky performance from him last weekend. But yeah, they can be got at. Teams can't score against, and as we said, Atletico Madrid, who aren't an infamous goal-scoring team, did manage to get it this weekend. But anyway, that doesn't mean to say their attack won't be able to let them help them out. Thomas Müller, 4 goals and 6 assists in 9 league games. And as we said earlier, Joao Musiala, he looks so good. 17-year-old English guy. I think we're still trying to convince him to sign up to the England project long term in the seniors. But he's got 2 goals and 6 Bundesliga appearances this term. Just run through his stats. It's always exciting to talk about a younger player. 3.7 shots, 5.6 dribbles, 0.5 expected goals for 90. We love that, albeit in a smaller sample size. He looks so promising. Some of his footwork against Atleti the other day was exceptional. But yeah, I mean, this is a big month for Bayern Munich. They've got Union Berlin away. They host Wolfsburg. That's 6th and 5th place in the league. And then they've got Bayer Leverkusen, who've been brilliant this season, actually. I think they're in third, and they've really, considering they lost Kevin Volland, who's been super impressive at Monaco since going there. And obviously they lost Kai Havertz, but they've really bounced back, and they look a force to be reckoned with in the Bundesliga again. But yeah, it's a really tasty game, especially against Leipzig, who know what they're doing too.
Yeah, this is a massive test. I mean, they've played Dortmund a couple of weeks ago. They've now got Leipzig this month, when they've got Kimmich out, when they've got Alphonso Davies out, who's expected to come back in January. So I think there's a leaf sweeper or something outside my room, if you can hear that. But yeah, this is the month where their rivals need to make the most of it before Bayern notoriously get going in about February and March and just steamroll the league. So if anyone wants to make an advantage, they need to start doing it fast. McCubs, RB Leipzig, considering their summer business, I think they've been pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I think we backed them to stay fairly steady, didn't we? I know Timo Werner was obviously a big loss for any side, but you kind of back Nagelsmann to make it work, especially with how deep that squad is. But they have been very good, and are very much in the title race, aren't they? Six of their opening 9 games they've won. Of the ones they haven't won, 2 draws and a loss, and their only loss has come against Gladbach away from home. So it's not like they've had any major slip-ups so far in that sense. And although they've been pretty inconsistent in the Champions League, their defensive record has been excellent in the league. They've only conceded 6 goals. That's the best record in Germany. Only Sociedad and Atleti have conceded fewer in the whole of Europe. So very impressive stuff from that back line. Obviously, with kind of, I think they've been able to adapt that back line depending on the opposition as well, haven't they? They've been kind of switching between 4 at the back, 3 at the back. Upamecano, like we said, has been excellent this term. It's been great to see kind of Konate back fairly consistently as well. And then on the attacking end, only Dortmund and Bayern have outscored their 18 league goals. So functioning pretty well. And even when looking back on last season, which was pretty excellent, especially in the first 6 months, they're actually outdoing themselves. They've won 2 more games, they've scored 1 more goal, they've conceded 3 fewer, and have 5 points more than at this stage in 2019-20. When they were actually 6th, I can't really remember that time, to be fair, but I guess maybe I'm just thinking like November, December kind of time, which is when the season would have been more advanced by this point, at which point they were more in the reckoning for the title, weren't they? As were kind of Mönchengladbach at that point as well. Their underlying stats suggest that they should definitely be in the position they are. They rank 1st in Germany for shots per game with 16.6. They rank 3rd for shots against with 8.2, which is excellent. And they should be 2nd behind Dortmund according to XG. Bayern are actually rated as 5th best in that sense. It's hard to take too much away from that at an early point in the season. But if they do continue that kind of form, get into the kind of 15-16 game mark, then you really have to back them to kind of stay in the title race until quite deep into the season. As for their key players, we've talked a lot about Angelino, haven't we? He's been excellent this term. 6 goals, 2 assists in 13 league and UCL games this season. He's averaging 3 tackles and interceptions, 2.1 shots, 2.1 key passes, averaging a dribble again as well. He's actually their top scorer in the league with 4. So really making up for that kind of loss of Werner in the forward line. I think that's something that's probably fairly unsustainable though. I know he's taking a lot of shots, but I don't know. I feel like his productivity will probably come down at some point. I think that's probably an area that Nagelsmann will need to address. But not putting a foot wrong at the moment, and obviously helping out a lot on the defensive end too. Dani Olmo's also developing pretty well, isn't he? 4 assists in 9 Bundesliga games so far this term. He's averaging 3.5 shots, 2.3 key passes. His XG and his expected goals and assists has taken a bit of a leap as well, from 0.37 per 90 to 0.54. So he's generally, getting in the better areas, creating better chances than he was before. And finally, Amadou Haidara has been. It's been really good to see him on the pitch a lot more. Only 9 Bundesliga starts over the previous 2 seasons, but this term he's already got 7 appearances. He's really been kind of playing across that midfield. I initially thought that with kind of Konrad Laimer out, he'd be, predominantly kind of positioned in that defensive midfield role, but he's been playing on the right. He's been playing a little bit more advanced as well. And he's been excellent. 3.6 tackles and interceptions, 1.3 shots, 1.5 key passes, also completing over 2 dribbles as well. So all round been excellent. The kind of numbers that you kind of tend to see from players in the Nagelsmann side, isn't it? Like, just very productive in kind of multiple areas of the game, and especially in terms of kind of tackles and interceptions, winning the ball back in good areas, pressing high. This team just seems to translate pretty well to his tactics, no matter who's really in it. So there's no real major worries for RB Leipzig at the moment. Like I said, I think they're probably going to need to find kind of output from the forward line a little bit more as we get deeper into the season. But right now, still looking like a very efficient, very exciting team.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you'll probably see more from Nkunku as the season progresses. I think he got his first league goal of the season last weekend. He's still a fantastic player. And Dani Olmo, is great to pick him out as well. I think he's been awesome. The way he finds space in tight areas. He just looks, ready-made for the top end of European competition, which, considering he was playing for Dinamo Zagreb up until, it was January that he moved, wasn't it? So he's not even been playing a year in a top 5 league, and he already looks absolutely awesome. This game, though, will be a massive test for RB Leipzig, despite Bayern's injuries. Obviously, I say Kimmich is out long term. Davy should be back in January, but Leipzig have got some major issues. So Konrad Laimer's out with an ankle fracture. Klostermann's had knee surgery. Hwang Hee-chan has COVID. And Benjamin Henrichs is out until the new year as well. And Leipzig don't have the best record in this fixture. They've actually only won 1 of their 10 meetings in their history, with 3 draws and 6 defeats. Although they will take a small crumb of comfort in that their last 2 fixtures have been draws. Henry, it's time for a score prediction. What are you saying?
I really want Leipzig to win. I get the sense that this could be a bit like that Mönchengladbach game last year, where Mönchengladbach beat Bayern and then went top of the table. Then Bayern just went and steamrolled the whole league. But I think I think Leipzig have got a real opportunity here. Like you said, they're defensively astute. Okay, they conceded 3 against Istanbul this week. I'm going to go... I'm going to say 2-1. I also think Sorloth getting that duck off his back, scoring a goal after something like 9 hours, I think that could be a real boost. Yeah, why not? I think Leipzig, they've had one kind of cup final midweek, and this will be another one. So yeah, 2-1 to them.
Oh, McCubs, are you backing a shock here?
Nah, I'm going to back Bayern. Always back Bayern. Always back Bayern. ABB. Always live like that. I always have. Always will.
Got that tattooed on you somewhere, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's also, I think it's also like a way of like describing like how like song structure as well, like ABB. I think that's something. Anyway. And also I think something that they tried to get the penalties changed to, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah,
anyway,
true. ABBA.
Yeah. ABBA. I digress. I think it's going to be a Bayern win. I think they're going to win like 3-1. I just see Lewandowski having a really good day. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, just they can always pull it out of the bag, can't they? No matter the opposition.
It's impossible to rule out Lewandowski because he just doesn't have a weakness. I mean, he's 6'3", he's incredibly strong. He turns on a sixpence. He's got unbelievable finishing. He's just unreal. Yeah, I mean, how can you not bat Lewandowski in that form to at least get on the score sheet? I'm actually going to go with a 1-1 draw, but I really hope, I'm kind of with Henry, that Leipzig managed to sneak a win, but I just don't see it happening. Guys, we're going to go straight into our quickfire question because McCubbin's camera's got about 2 minutes to go. And it's just, I want a very quick answer on this. The question comes in from @mypissmole. Who do you think will be gone first?
No.
Zidane, Conte or Tuchel? Henry, a very quick answer. What do you reckon?
Oh, goodness. I think Zidane will probably go this summer. Get in Pochettino, get the young guys playing. That's my answer for now. Though it could be Conte. Who knows?
Fair. McCubs, what do you reckon?
Oh, it depends who goes out of the Champions League, doesn't it? I don't think Inter going out of the Champions League is that detrimental to Conte's career. But oh god, I'm gonna say Tuchel.
Wow.
I don't know. Like Başakşehir here, I'm gonna do one over on them.
Love it. I'm going to complete the trio and go with Conte, even though they bounced back from that. So I was about to say disgusting. I think that's a bit strong. Very weak defeat against Real Madrid in the Champions League last week, with a great win against Sassuolo and then a great win in midweek as well. I just feel like if Inter Milan don't challenge for a title this year, Conte's head's going to explode. His new hair's going to fall out and it's going to be an absolute disaster. Wow. So I'm going to go with Conte. But yeah, you guys were going Zidane and Tuchel, so there we have it. Guys, that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We fixed Real Madrid, we talked Bayern and Leipzig, and we talked about which top manager will be fired first. Get your thoughts of it in the comments down below. And McCubs, what should they go and watch now?
You should go and watch, what was it? Football Pyramid from last weekend was myself versus Henry. If you haven't seen that already, get on it because it's a classic episode. Stay tuned for this weekend's episode between Samuel Basecki and Zach Lab, I believe. Go and check out the expert from last week. Dougie had a great conversation with a La Liga expert. So go and check that out as well.
Nice. Anything from you, Henry?
No.
Love it. Do you want to say something?
Oh, just go check out the top 10, XIs, all that jazz.
Absolutely. Keep supporting all our 3 channels. Don't forget to subscribe to Eurofootball Daily, the most important of the 3 channels between me and you. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.